Good morning, ultimate hustlers and digital empire builders. It is 7 a.m. on a Tuesday morning, so y'all know what time it is. It's time for the St. Louis Hustle Podcast with your boy Cortez Hustle, my girl Michelle A. And today we got a special guest because we got a serious topic that we've got to discuss. We're talking about the opioid epidemic, ladies and gentlemen. And this is a conversation that is not normally had in public in our community, but a lot of our families are suffering in silence with family members who are struggling with this addiction. They popping pills, they doing lines, they are injecting stuff into their veins, and they're overdosing at an alarming rate. And there's something that you could do about that as a family member to save them. And sometimes all they need is a little bit of time to get their lives together. So we got Pastor Pam on with us today, and we can't wait to get to this conversation. So do us a huge favor, comment in the chat where you're from, drop the name of your business and or your brand, and smash that share button, ladies and gentlemen, and let's kick it this morning.
Growing up in St. Louis has never been easy, and most say if you want to succeed here, that you must leave and put down roots somewhere else because of the strong crabs in a barrel mentality here.
I don't know if I'm just an optimistic person, but to see people like Chuck Berry and Nelly make it in the music industry, or the Roberts brothers and Dave Stewart in business, or William Lacey Clay Jr. in politics, can we blame the city, or is it that people just aren't hungry enough?
We're talking to all of the movers and shakers in this town, from entertainers to politicians, social activists and organizers, and of course, entrepreneurs.
Is there a curse on this city that holds people back? Is there an unseen hand that decides who makes it and who doesn't? You're about to find out.
Welcome to St. Louis Hustle.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the St. Louis Hustle Podcast. I'm Cortez Hustle. That's my girl Michelle A. And we're coming to you live and direct from the Black Biz Success Mastermind Studios right here in St. Louis, Missouri, where a bunch of us entrepreneurs are getting together and we're providing tools, tips, resources, training, education, and information to help you grow your Black business. All you got to do is text the keyword mastermind to 314-866-4053. Again, if you are an aspiring entrepreneur, or if you're an existing entrepreneur trying to grow your Black business, or if you just like to support and network with Black business owners, text mastermind to 314-866-4053. You want to be a part of this community. It's an amazing opportunity for you to learn and grow and really take your business to the next level. Today, we got a very special guest coming to hang out with us today. We got a very serious topic that we must discuss, and it is the opioid epidemic that's taking place nationally, right? But the conversation is not being had in our communities, and there's some things that we could do and should be doing to be prepared for when those things happen. So a serious conversation today. We apologize in advance that Michelle is still gonna make y'all laugh in and around this subject, but nevertheless, this is something serious that we got to have a talk about. But before we get into all of that, Chalet, I understand you had an amazing weekend that culminated all the way through yesterday.
Man, woo, good Lord. I'm still woe out. You know, there's a difference between being tired and woe out. I'm woe out. I am woe out. But man, what I tell you, I had the bestest time ever. It's like SpongeBob, bestest day ever, ever. It was just so amazing. So just backtracking a little bit, Saturday was the Humor to Healing event, and it was all that. Shout out to everyone that came out and supported that event, whether you were there in spirit or there in person. Shout out to all the comedians, J-Dub, Rev, CC Love Child, and Jason Nelson, who pushed the bounds of cussing in church. Praise ye the Lord.
Not just cussing in church. I pushed the bounds of cussing the church members out. Y'all ain't gonna laugh? Wait a minute.
Right.
I'm putting myself out there.
It was an amazing event. It was great. We had awesome feedback afterwards, and it was all that. So yeah, shout out to our sponsors, Open Arms, Keys Realty Group, Delicious Delight Cookies. Trying to make sure I hit all of our sponsors. Everyone that was a part of this event. More to come. So gotta stay tuned. This is just the beginning. So man, so that was that was Saturday. And then yesterday, shout out to my homie, my new BFF, right? Captain Clay Farmer. Man, I wish I could say he's from one particular office, but he's with the prosecuting attorney's office as their director of security, but he also is a policeman with one of the local municipalities. He gave me an opportunity to come and participate in a police simulator program. And man, when I tell you, my mind was thinking Martin Lawrence in National Security, where Martin Lawrence is driving a police car and he have to put him in these situations. I was like, Lord, I don't know. It was amazing. It was all computer simulated where they put us. It was myself and a church group. And I found out that this church group, I can't remember their name, but man, they're some killers. Because they put us in situations where we didn't know what the outcome was going to be, of course. And it was so realistic because things happen so quickly. Different types of scenarios that policemen see every day. And it was to give us a look just behind the scenes to see that police have to make very big decisions in a snap of a moment, in a blink of an eye. And it just gave a really, really great perspective, a different perspective. No matter how you feel about the police, like I am thinking about organizing a group to take them through, just a group of, I think they can do 10 to 12 people and just people with different backgrounds and take them to this because it's an amazing experience. And Captain Clay, I'm trying to get him on somebody's stage because that dude is hilarious. Man, he's hilarious.
Yesterday, so we're definitely going to organize a St. Louis podcast group to go out there and have that good time. But it gives you a newfound respect for.
Oh my God, it absolutely does. Like, it does.
Like everybody talks about, more training and all of that kind of stuff. But as you witness, sometimes training go out the window. And you don't have time to think about the training and all. I mean, like, seriously, stuff happens so fast.
Cortez, one of the scenarios that I had, they put us in twos. So I was the backup for my partner. And it was a scenario where a guy had held up a bank. And he was walking out the front door of the bank and he had a lady around the neck, had the gun to her head. And so we're supposed to be calling out these demands, interacting with the video. And before I know it, the gun went off. And it was very real. It was very real, even though it was all reenacted. And man, the gun went off and the woman dropped, and I hollered, and I was like, where can I run? I had the gun like this. I was like, oh Lord. And I was like, I left my partner. I was like, I'm out. We out. I was out. I left my partner standing. They was like, where are you going? It was man. Yeah, we would. When I say I'm gonna push that one, what you should have said it, because now I'm gonna get on your nerves till that happen. St. Louis podcast group,
St. Louis Hustle podcast in the community. Because I was telling my sister-in-law about it. She's like, I want to go. I want to do it. So we got a few people want to do. Of course, my sugar wants to ride out and
it's gonna be fun.
So yeah, we're gonna do that for sure. So. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Michelle's weekend. I was there for part of it. I was at the Human Healing event with Michelle. At the same time, I'm struggling trying to watch my son's basketball game on the road so I can get to the place and help set up and all that kind of stuff. But nevertheless, it was a wonderful event, man. I had such a great time. You guys have some amazing talent. I mean, you guys have that crowd balled up on the floor, just dying from wire to wire. So kudos to all of you guys for putting in that work. So let's go ahead and bring in our guest for today, though. I want to transition to somewhat of a serious topic. Michelle still got her word of the day, but we want to take this moment. You want to go ahead and do the intro for our good sister, Pastor Pam?
Sure. So, man, we want to introduce to some and present to others the one and only pastor. She's got the biggest heart and definitely cares about community, but more importantly, cares about the struggle that we're having with the opioid addiction. I met her at one of our other events, and she has just been a light. And I nicknamed her Narcan Pam, but she probably won't like that name. Hope that's okay, because she keeps the Narcan on deck, because that's how serious it is. She keeps it on deck. So please welcome to the show, Pastor Pam.
Pastor
Good morning, everyone.
Pastor Narcan Pam.
Good morning. And Pastor Pam had us doing a hokey pokey.
She sure did. That's where you got skills. You can make a whole crowd of people do the hokey pokey and pull it out.
And turned ourselves around. Don't leave that out.
Oh, yes, we did. Oh, yes.
All right, Pastor Pam, before we get into who you are and what got you so passionate about this particular fight, Michelle does a segment on the show called the Michelle A Word of the Day. So we're going to let Michelle do that. And you might even have something to comment on the Michelle A Word of the Day. So let's get to the Michelle A Word of the Day, guys.
And now the Michelle A Word of the Day.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It is Michelle A with your Michelle A Word of the Day here. And the last few weeks, we've been talking about strongholds, right? I told you, as I was learning information, I want to share it with you guys. And so, we learned about how to identify strongholds, how to manage triggers for strongholds. And now we're going to wrap it up with how to have strategies for avoiding some of those strongholds or dealing with them. Shout out again to one of my online mentor. He don't know it, but I know it. My online mentor, Dr. Darius Daniels, which is where I've gotten this information from. So just in closing, some of the strategies, help me Jesus, some of the strategies that you can have for dealing with strongholds. You need to be in radical pursuit of self-awareness, right? Because if you're not self-aware, that's all enclosed in my book as well. But if you don't have self-awareness, it is really hard to really get to the root of what's going on, which is that stronghold, tracking it back to what might have happened that causes whatever that undesired behavior is. Also, you need to be in radical pursuit of like-minded relationships. To me, that's a big one. I'm going to say it again. Be in pursuit of like-minded relationships. Okay. So here's a big thing about that. When you are in pursuit of those relationships, you got to kind of be aware, right? Because not everybody is ready to come out of where they are yet. So if you get with somebody, they might agree that they have an issue, but if they're not ready to get healing for that issue, you really kind of need to space yourself from that person, because if they're not ready to come out, they're still in, and you trying to come out, that'll hinder your process. So you got to keep that in mind. Some friendships, some of the correct friendships that we have to pursue them, right? So if you have positive people in your life and maybe you're not that close, I'm not saying stalk them, but put some effort in to trying to connect with them, right? To hang out with them. If you're hanging out with people and you're the smartest one in your circle or the strongest one in your circle, you might need a new circle. So, and my last one is be in radical pursuit of strategic prayer. We pray to God, we talk to God. He's a good father. We can do that. But we also need to be strategic with our prayer in certain areas. Prayer of being aware of ourselves. Prayer, for pulling down strongholds. There's many different types of prayers that you can do, but we have to be strategic. Beyond just talking to God, we have to be specific and strategic with our prayer. So I'm hoping that this blessed you, because it's sure enough blessed me. And I am Michelle A, and that is your Michelle A Word of the Day. Wow.
Boom, there you go. The Michelle A Word of the Day, ladies and gentlemen, brought to you by our good friends over at Open Arms Wellness. And they are hiring, ladies and gentlemen. So check this out.
Open Arms Wellness knows all too well that burnout is real while caring for others. That's why we offer 30% more pay, flexibility, and control over your own schedule than agency work does. From marketing to scheduling, credentialing, and billing, we've got you covered. So you have the energy to provide top quality care to your clients. Open Arms Wellness is community-centered to help you develop your career with educational stipends, medical, dental, and vision, and a 401k. Call Open Arms Wellness today. 314-329-4326.
You have it, ladies and gentlemen. If you are a certified licensed clinical mental health therapist and you want to work with a group of people who are really about that life, not only in the offices, but in the streets, in their community, as they showed up to the Human Healing, and they really blessed our community on Saturday. So we are super excited to be in partnership with them. So Pastor Pam, we ask everybody that comes on the St. Louis Hustle podcast the same question, so you don't get to escape it. We're going to ask it to you. And the question is this, my friend: who the heck are you?
Well, let's see. I am a pastor. That's who I am. before that, I am a mother, right? And I have amazing children whom I love and adore, and they love and adore me sometimes because my daughter's a teenager. So let's keep it real. And but no, they're awesome. And everything I do for them, you know. But I am a pastor, and I am grateful to do that. And I often tell people, people think that you know, when you say pastor, all of a sudden you hear angels and see a glow. You know, but that's not the truth. You know, it just means that I'm an extreme servant. You know what I mean? So for me, life exists simply to serve others. You know what I mean? And I'm very
Nice.
grateful for that. And aside from being a pastor, which is what brings me here today, I am an overdose educator. You know, I educate people on overdose, and I am a Narcan distributor. You know, that is one of the number one things in my life. I have devoted this portion of my life to that so that I can help to save others. And I'm fortunate. I do that out of UMSL's Missouri Institute of Mental Health. We have a great collaboration, and they afford me the opportunity to be able to train people all over the state of Missouri. That is my title, the overdose educator and Narcan distributor. So that's who I am. I do that with other things, as well as I am a mental health and first aid trainer, which is something I'm very proud of. I went to this training, you know, during Zooms. We've been on thousands of Zooms, right?
Mhm.
And I got tired of Zooms. I was going to just, you know, shoot my computer. I'm like, what the what? But I went to this one Zoom, and it was a training on mental health. And it was so amazing that I saw me in the training. I saw my sister in the training. I saw all these people in the training that I knew. I'm like, I've got to learn this for myself. And
Mhm.
so I did, and it blessed me, and it affords me the opportunity to go around and train people about mental health and how that they can step in and rescue others. That's who I am.
Awesome. I love that.
Awesome.
So take us back a little bit. Were you pastor's kid, priest's kid, or just grew up in the church? How did you get into the ministry? Was some people I know, myself included, run from that call of
Mm,
ministry.
mm,
Um,
Well, I
how,
tell you,
mm.
um, I started out in a church very early, you know,
mhm,
and I enjoyed it greatly. And I was looking for this extreme experience, but I didn't quite receive it yet, right?
mhm,
And so, like most young people, I did what young people do, and which is part of what makes me passionate about what I do now. You know,
mhm,
when crack hit the 80s and dominated people's lives, it dominated my life as well, you know,
mhm.
and I couldn't understand that. You know, I'm
Yeah.
thinking, wait a minute, what is this? And it was something that, you know, it just left a, you know, indelible mark in my mind that I
Mhm.
should be humble and I should help others, you know?
Yeah.
And so I returned to church, and thank goodness I received that amazing experience I was looking for, you know,
Mhm,
and the
mhm.
Lord set me free. And so
Yeah.
once I became set free, I was just looking for ways to help, period.
Mhm,
And I felt this call on my life, and it was confirmed. One of the funniest things that happened, me and some friends, you know, you're young and you're happy to go to all these conventions, you're going to meet all these people. So we go to convention, and we're in our room laughing, cracking jokes, doing all what we do, you know. Then we're going to these different services, and I go to one service, and I'm sitting there, and I thought, now I don't want to scare you all, but I thought, sure, I heard the Lord say, go buy a robe, because there are people there selling their goods too. And
mhm.
I'm like, what? A robe? I don't preach. So I'm steady in the service. I hear it again. Go buy a robe. I'm like, what? So I get up and I go buy the robe, right? Leave it there, say, I'll be back, go back to service. After the service, get the robe, take the robe up to the room. And my friends are like, girl, what's wrong with you? I'm like, I don't know. The Lord told me to buy this robe. They're laughing, they're falling out. It's the joke of the day, right? And
Mhm.
then, but I didn't tell anyone I had gotten it. And when we get back home, I hang it in my closet. And that week, the pastor called me and said, Sister Pam, I think it's time for you to bring your first sermon. So this is
Wow.
Mm.
that I was doing what I was
Wow.
supposed to be doing, you know, and
Wow.
it just continued on from there.
I love it. I
Wow.
love it. I love it.
Awesome.
It's real, and I got receipts.
Right. You kept your receipts.
And you talked about, the crack epidemic, and I think this is a good segue. And if y'all know anything about me, uh, I'm always floored and flabbergasted, right, when it comes to the lack of our willingness to talk about the racial tones and the racial undertones of everything that go on in this country. And until we get serious about that, we're never going to truly heal, right? We talked about crack in the 80s. What came out of crack in the 80s for us was more prisons, right? And
Yeah.
now we have an opioid epidemic. And what's coming out of the opioid epidemic? More treatment centers, right?
Mhm.
And so glad that you were able to get healed and delivered out of that for two reasons. A, because now you're an amazing pastor, but B, you have this now amazing and insatiable fire to help
Mhm.
other people who are truly seeking that deliverance to come out. So now that you are on the other side looking at the devastation that this new epidemic is causing in the community, what are some of the things that you are seeing that you could parallel with the crack epidemic and this opioid epidemic?
Well, some of the parallels are the obvious ones, like family disconnection and that sort of
Mhm.
thing. And
Mhm.
in this case, it's a bit heavier, but that is definitely one of the number one parallels. The lack of education about what this epidemic is doing to the people, just like it was with crack. People really didn't know what was happening, until we were far into it. Then there was more understanding, and we still didn't fully understand it until it seemed to be over, you
Mhm.
know.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Through movies like Kill the Messenger and things like that. It brought awareness to what really happened
Yeah.
during that time. Uh, Comparison, the effect that it's having on the Black community. There's a extreme effect on us and on also communities of people that are underserved, people that have any I don't want to say it like that, but yes, people that are underserved, they are um, getting the brunt of it as well. But as
We can
always,
say it on this show, Pastor Pam. The
Yeah.
poor white communities are hurting because of this very same epidemic, and that's something else that we don't talk about.
Yep.
There's a little bit of difference between poor black and poor white, but we both get it across the board.
Yep.
But because of the division, then we don't talk about it. And I believe, and this is just me saying this is not a reflection of the St. Louis Hustle Podcast and I Hustle Media Group or A Media Marketing. This is strictly Cortez's opinion. I believe that's what got Dr. Martin Luther King killed.
well, yes,
Because
for
he
sure. And
was
I have,
on a mission to bring poor whites and poor blacks together. When he started talking about the economic crisis between what poor whites were experiencing and poor blacks, like, come on, what's the real difference between the ghetto and the trailer park?
yeah.
Mm.
And he was bridging that gap. And yeah, you talking the integration and all that stuff, that's fine, rah, rah, rah. But all of a sudden you start talking about, wait a minute, bringing the two poor communities together to look
Mhm.
at the government as the problem.
Yep.
Nah, we can't have that. So you're talking about poor white communities are struggling and getting hit hard with this opioid epidemic, and blacks as well. But let's take it back though, and let's define what opioids are,
Yeah.
and kind of let's bring everybody up to speed so we can all have a solid understanding. And then I'll let Michelle get at least one question in today.
Right. Because
Yes. Okay, for sure. And so with that, I want to inject other communities of color. You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Mhm.
Because when we say color, we all automatically assume we're talking about chocolate people, but the other colors as well. If they're underprivileged, they are underserved, and it
Mhm.
is hitting them pretty hard. But we are definitely number one. And so what an opioid is an opioid is something that depresses your system when you put it inside. So
Mhm.
for the layperson, an opioid would be, of course, we know we have heroin, but there is Percocet, Oxycontin, hydrocodone, Dilaudid, all of these types of pills. The pills that the doctor would give you if you have an extreme pain, those are the opioids, and some of the opioids are natural, like the heroin, and some of them are synthetic. They were created in the lab. And the opioid that is crippling not just St. Louis, not just the United States, this is all over the world. It is fentanyl. And before COVID came on the scene, the number one epidemic in the world was overdose and fentanyl. And as we were getting ready to project and put the narrative out, then COVID hit. So it kind of pushed, opioids on the back burner. We went through the time here in America when they said, oh, we have the opioid crisis, right? And we understood that meant doctors were overriding these prescriptions and all this stuff was going on, and then they pulled them back. But the depth of all of the things that happened subsequent to that, we didn't really get a chance to dig into it. So opioids
should not have said that, Pastor Pam, because now my conspiracy theorists senses are tingling, right? It's just like, oh, okay, this is why COVID is happening. We can't start messing with the opioid money. Nevertheless, so that's that. It's both. It's on both ends. It's the prescription based, but then there's also the street drug that we know as heroin, right? And then all of the synthetics that come out of that, and the derivatives that come out of it. It's funny that I was watching one of my favorite series last night, Ozarks. And a young man overdosed. And what did they do to bring him back? They Narcaned him with a shot to the leg of Narcan, right? And I was like, hey, Pastor Pam was just telling us about the Narcan, right? But she brought him back with a heavy dose shot of Narcan in the leg. So go ahead, Michelle.
No, I was just going to ask a question, and this is for clarity and my understanding, because I really am. I try to act like I know stuff sometimes, but I really am naive to a lot of things, and I'm totally naive to the drug world. Like beyond weed, I don't know nothing about it, and so I don't. So fentanyl, is fentanyl a medical drug like the hydrocodones and the other stuff that you named? Is that a medical drug and it's being misused, or is it, what is fentanyl, and is it put with the opioid, and that's what's like? Give me that real quick.
That is a great question. What fentanyl was originally designed for is an elephant tranquilizer, period.
Oh my.
So it's designed to put down big game. And from there, now fentanyl is used in epidurals. And if you've ever had a baby and they give you an epidural, you feel nothing, know? And that's because of the fentanyl. It's numbing that. So you can imagine if it takes away the complete pain associated with labor and delivery, you know what it does. But those are professionals, and they are given the appropriate amounts of it. With fentanyl, the thing is, say we were all drinking coffee this morning, which I wish I brought my coffee, I forgot it. But if we were all drinking coffee and you said, hey, Pastor Ben, this stuff is not sweet enough, give me another pack of sugar, and I gave you a pack of sugar, one sugar pack of, if it were fentanyl, will kill 50,000 people.
Wow.
So how is it getting with the I'm not, I guess, and I don't want to take it too elementary, but is it like with the other opioids? I understand doctors overwrite prescriptions, but is fentanyl something that a prescription will be written for? Like, how is it making its way to the street?
Well, originally it was making its way through China. China produces the fentanyl, and they produced it and projected it onto the streets of the United States. There's several things that happened in those last couple of years that I was talking about. Different crops change. So, if you go back, we're out of Afghanistan, right? Well, we're no longer using their poppy seeds. So yes, we're out of Afghanistan. You know what I mean? And then there's a crop that was coming out before. People were getting all of the heroin from Afghanistan. right? And so it was very high. It was expensive to get. I don't know the actual prices, but say in comparison, 1 kilo of heroin, maybe it was just say $10,000 or something like that. But then when the crop changed, because we no longer need Mexico's marijuana, right?
Mm-hmm.
Grow our own now, right?
Mhm.
So Mexico said we need another crop. So they began doing heroin. But it's a cheaper grade of heroin and it's less expensive to purchase. So when you were paying $10,000 a key before and now you're paying $1,000 a key, it's a no-brainer. So
Right.
the heroin started coming up from Mexico now, right? And with that, um, China's contribution was the fentanyl, right? And so the fentanyl was coming by way of China, and fentanyl, what they started doing was taking the fentanyl and mixing it in with the heroin, right? So at first it was a little bit overdoses starting here, overdoses starting there. And as they continue to do that, I'm talking about the people that are distributing it to sell, then they started switching it out. And here in Missouri now, there is no straight heroin, and people don't know that. So they think, oh, I'm using heroin. No, you're not. You are using fentanyl. And then people that started being aware that it was fentanyl, because of the sickness that they are walking in, they prefer the fentanyl. They think that they're getting higher, they're getting higher faster. Well, it is hitting them faster, but what they don't understand is this was designed to take down an elephant, and the proper measurements that it would take for it not to kill you. Of course, the people that are mixing it for sale, they're not chemists and botanists or whatever. They don't know the proper mixture, and so they're not trying to kill you because they want the customers to come back. But they know the proper procedure, and so people are overdosing. And with that, I want to add, when you asked that question, I thought this is a great question, because now it has gone beyond people using heroin or heroin laced with fentanyl or using the fentanyl. Now the distributors of the fentanyl are putting it in all of the drugs. So people that have been smoking crack, and we know that some of them were still smoking it since the 80s, right? Or in between, they fall off and get back on or whatever. Now all of a sudden we hear about these people overdosing, and they hadn't been overdosing. Well, it's because fentanyl is being mixed in the crack now. The only thing that is hard for it to affect, people say, oh, well, some young people died, they were smoking weed, and they said it had fentanyl in it. If fentanyl is placed inside of marijuana and somebody's smoking it in the more commonly known form, and they're smoking it in a blunt or something like that, it can't kill you because the heat is too much for it. It's going to disintegrate before it ever gets anywhere near your body. Can possibly work, and we don't have any statistics on that, but the closest thing that we can figure at this point, it could possibly do it if somebody placed it on a device like a bong or something like that, because you don't have to use as much heat to make the transfer happen. But traditionally, we know people aren't really going around smoking like that. They're smoking blunts and that sort of thing.
So it's getting mixed with and this is my last one, it's getting mixed with the pills. So people are maybe taking the opioid, crushing it down, mixing the fentanyl, and then how you make a pill, I don't know. But I guess they're out there doing it, and it gets rebated to the pill, and then that's how the overdose is happening.
They're using it through just plain snorting it or shooting it. Those are the traditional ways that people would use heroin. But then in the pills, they are also mixing it in the pills, and they are creating fake pills. So people that hooked on some of the opioids, the pill forms, then they are purchasing them like they always do. They're not purchasing the real thing. They're purchasing, this. And don't leave out our young people. And I say that because our young people are doing it on a level that is really has never been seen. And so they are taking these double styrofoam cups and they're sipping syrup and they're making dirty Sprites. And in that, they are mixing those opioids, those pills, and they're mixing it either with NyQuil, they're mixing it with, I almost called the name of it. it's a cough medicine that they're mixing it with, and they're mixing it with Sprite. And so then when you listen to rap music, you know, we're gonna wine and sip forever. We're gonna dirty Sprite together. Don't get too
Mhm.
thirsty, you know.
Yeah,
So it's in the music, and they are subscribing to it because they're here and all around them and they want to try it.
yeah. That
Wow.
it is amazing that that's capitalism, the most perverted version of capitalism that you could have when someone says, I have something that is so addictive that it's going to make me money forever, but it can
Mm.
also kill people. And I'm willing to lose a certain percentage of my customers because I'm gaining more new customers than I'm losing to death and overdose and treatment centers.
Mm.
That I'm willing now, again, it's capitalism. So now, what do you do when you want to grow a business? You have to get into other markets. Now I got to put the fentanyl in the crack market. I got to put the fentanyl in the weed market. I got to put the fentanyl in the ecstasy market. And man, that is crazy. So I know you got some statistics for us, Doc, and I'm gonna call you Doc from this point out. So don't feel bad. But from this point out, because I think people need to understand the numbers behind this, because it's one thing to say one or two people have overdosed. And when you say that, and I don't mean to be insensitive to anyone who has lost a loved one, but when you have one or two people overdosing, then you kind of blame it on the people, right? Well, they knew what they was getting into. They shouldn't have been just like this, that, and other. But when you start saying tens of thousands of people are getting caught up in this game. Another um, show that I watched, like, talked about a synthetic version of fentanyl, carfentanil, that they were using. I forget the name of this show, but they were out in the Boston, Cape Cod area, and some kids got a hold of it, and it was so powerful that just touching it caused them to die, right? And we don't understand the casualties that go beyond just the people who are using this willingly, but how does it affect people who are unwillingly getting a hold of this stuff? And then how does it affect the children who are losing parents to this epidemic? So help us understand some of the numbers, right?
For sure. When we think about that, and you're right. So the government, they made an announcement late last year, and everybody, you know, was in shock. And they said in America, 100,000 people died the last year, right?
Mhm.
And so that's a lot of people.
Yeah.
And of those people that died at this point, it's safe to say that about 70% of those people were African American people.
Mhm.
Here in St. Louis, right? We had back as, let's see, we started taking this data in 2018, there was 71% of the overdose deaths were Black males.
Mhm.
Since then, and the COVID happening, right? With COVID, just like everything else got out of control, overdose inclined as well. And the reason for the incline is because a lot of people were isolated and separated. Of course, people were depressed. Of course, people were overwhelmed, everything. But when it comes to using these opiates, there are rules, and that's part of the education. There are rules to it that can help you prevent from overdosing. Those numbers look like the Black male is number one in overdose, period.
Mhm.
The white male is number two in overdose, but he has a competitor, and that's the Black woman. She is getting ready to pass him up and become number two, and that is the part that kind of gets people in in that substance use disorder community, because
Mhm.
that wasn't the case. The white female, and I'm happy for that, her numbers went down a little bit during COVID, and we don't actually know why. Maybe that's because the families were more sympathetic or empathetic and started
Mhm.
to receive them back into their homes and things like that during the COVID, is my guesstimation on it.
Mhm.
Um, and so the Black woman was at the bottom, but she passed the white female up, and now it looks like she could pass the white male up as well. So we are number one in this fight. And in this city, we are moving to the degree that we are fastly approaching what could be number one in the country. You know, people go hard in St. Louis. I thought about it the other day. We don't say what we used to say growing up. I told all my friends, ask the young people and see if they can finish this. We are from the what state? We used to say the show me state. You know, you got to show me. And so when things happen, we would be like, what? No, we don't talk about it. We would do it, you know, because we have to show. And so I think there's an element of that that still courses throughout these communities. And people get into things and delve into things. But I do want to say, we look at people and we say, well, you know, yeah, like you said, they have a choice. They don't have to do that. You know, they're not making a good choice. They're not making a good decision. Well, I could take my own personal self back to the 80s. I didn't know what I was doing. I was trying to hang out with my friends. I was trying to have fun. I thought it was cool. You see, I didn't know that it was an addiction. I didn't have a clue. I remember walking up my godmother's steps because she worked nights, so that meant we could go over and play around, right? So I'm walking up her steps. I have a piece of crack in my hand, and this is probably, I don't know, maybe 87, something like that. And I had it in my hand, and I just kept looking at it. And I'm walking up the steps with the other girls. We're going in. I'm looking at it. And I thought, wait a minute. I spent my whole check on this. I said, what's wrong with y'all? I spent my whole check. My money's gone. And I was a young girl, but I was making good money. I was making $400 a week after taxes at that in 87. So that was good. I said, my whole check is gone. And I just started crying. And one of my friends said, Pam, I'm sorry. I should have told you. Because they were already using. So that's what people do. I didn't have a clue of what I was getting into. And so from there, it took me a little minute to get out of it, you know, but God is faithful. And that's what's happening with people now. They don't really know what they're doing. These people listening to something that's telling them, you know, it's cool to do, it's whatever, you know, you can, some males, you start using it because the word on the street is they can go all night long. You feel me? And they don't have a clue that you're actually getting into an addiction that you don't know anything about.
And I think that's a good point. I think this is where those who have battled and overcome the crack addiction could really lend their voices to this thing. Because you just, like you said, you did not know it was a good time. And you thinking, I'm going to have a fun night tonight. And then I'm going to go back to life as usual tomorrow. When you're dealing with something that is highly addictive, that's not the case, right? And I think you guys have the ability to testify that, yeah, I know you think you are in control because you 2 weeks in and you kind of get high when you feel like it. But eventually, right? I talked to my sons about this because we like, they get it honest from their dad. I at one point wrote a song called The Number One Clucker because I smoked so much weed, right? And they kind of understand, like, I'm like, I remember smoking so much weed, and this is how I knew I had a problem. I would be smoking weed. I roll up a blunt, go somewhere and hang out, and then I would light up, fire up, right? Smoke some, Tez. We go smoke some. And while I'm smoking, I'm already thinking about when I'm going to come down off this high so I can smoke again. Wait a minute, I ain't even enjoyed this high yet. I'm smoking at 12. I'm like, yeah, this probably gonna last me to about 132. And then I'm gonna go and hit in the basement, and then I'm gonna fire up and people don't understand it. And I think people who came up in the crack era, whether you actually experienced the drug or you experienced the fallout from the drug, can really voice to say, listen, this is a problem, and here's why. And to your point about the Black female, right? We had never seen our Black women decimated by a drug until the crack epidemic. Black women had never done drugs on a massive scale. You always had people in the streets doing their thing, the females, but working Black women, mothers taking care of children at home, had never been decimated by a drug. And it sounds like the same thing is happening again. So we now know that Narcan is an amazing solution to bringing people back off overdose. But before we get to that, what are some things that we could do, in terms of recognizing the signs? If one of my sons was popping pills or sipping syrup or dirty sprites or whatever you call it, right? I would want to, how can I recognize the signs of that to intervene before I need some Narcan to try to bring this butt back to life?
Okay. Well, when we think about recognizing the signs of it, of course, there are signs that you would see before a person overdoses. So those may be signs where they're all of a sudden detached from, interaction with everyone else, and they want to be to themselves, things like that. It could be signs where they're not doing things that they normally do. And these are things that would come out of mental health, the mental health training. They're not doing things that they normally do. Maybe they normally eat lots of food. Now they don't want to eat anymore. Maybe they go to work, but now they don't go to work anymore. Maybe they're always on time, but now they're always late. It has to be a change in their pattern. So if somebody's always late, that's not a sign. But when they start changing their pattern and you see them withdrawing in ways that they didn't before, that could be a sign. At least if it's not of the drugs, it could be a sign that they're having a mental challenge, which is something we need to understand. People aren't, we used to call people drug addicts, or God forbid, names like a crackhead or this or that. I often tell people, I think when the term was made, somebody was looking at me walking down the street. They said, "Oh, that's a crackhead." I really believe somebody saw me, and that probably was the term. That's how bad it made me feel. You get it? But now we recognize that no, people have substance use disorders. It is a mental condition, and it's just like diabetes or anything else. We're not beating people up for being a diabetic. They're type 2, and they say all you got to do is quit eating off the chart and exercise. But yet, still a type 2 diabetic, still need the medicine every month, still sugars go up and go down, and we don't abuse them. We don't call them out of their name. Oh, you diabetic overeater or whatever. We don't do that. So we need to
You're a
understand that.
diabetic head.
Right, a diabetic head. Okay. So once we understand that it is a condition, then we can certainly treat it differently. And with that, I could just tell you, when it comes to, and I didn't want to leave out the statistic that the number one cause of death for people between the ages of 18 and 45 is overdose. Period. So when we look at that, we know that this is nothing to play with. When it comes to Narcan, I can say this quickly. Narcan was created in the 60s when our men were coming, I don't know when we're in then, but when they were coming back from Vietnam, right? And people have these habits and things like that they had developed by being over there just trying to deal with the pain and all of that different stuff. Well, it was created in the 60s. However, we didn't hear anything about it, and it wasn't being given to us, right? And so we didn't have the access to it. And then it became available to EMS drivers and emergency help like that. But regular Joe citizen, we didn't have the access to it. But now we do. And so if you have insurance, you could go right into Walgreens and say, I'd like a box of Narcan. And if your insurance has a copay and your copay is whatever it is, you're going to pay that copay and they're going to give you the Narcan. You don't even need a prescription. It's just that simple. If you need it from somebody that's distributing it, like myself, out of the Institute, from the Missouri Institute of Mental Health, you can ask for the training, get the training, and it can be distributed. You can get it. You can get it for yourself. You can get it for your organization. I advise people, get it, keep it in your car. You can take it in and out in extreme weather, but okay, Michelle A says she got hers, and she does. Keep it in your automobile, keep it somewhere nearby where you can always grab it, because some people say, well, I don't know anybody that uses. Okay. If the cable man comes to your house and he's putting on cable and says, hey, can I use the restroom? You don't know what he's doing in that bathroom. And there's stories about all kinds of things like that. And I can tell you what there are some things that protect too. And you mentioned people that may be used in the 80s and things like this could be a great help. That's why we have positions now called peer specialists. They are so needed. The academic community has recognized that in order to fight this battle, it can't be fought just by academics, because you have to be able to identify with this experience in order to relate to somebody else so that they can come out of it. And that therein comes the peer specialist. That's a person that has used drugs before and is not using them now. That makes you a specialist. They have a training for that through the Missouri Credentialing Board. It's a peer specialist training. Once a person receives that, they can work all through this city for all kinds of agencies to help deter people from using drugs. And there is something called a Good Samaritan Act. I don't want to forget that. So if somebody approaches you with Narcan and says, hey, do you need this? Do you have insurance for it? Or can I give it to you? However they present it to you, then people are sometimes afraid because they think they're going to go to jail or get fired. You can't. There's a Good Samaritan law in effect in Missouri. If you are in the act of saving someone's life, you cannot be sued. Your heirs can't be sued. Your job cannot fire you and that sort of thing. So don't be afraid to take it. That's how people can help. Get some if you can get it. Take some if you can take it, and be prepared to save a life. I want to show you these couple of things, and we'll let it go. These are the reasons why I do it. This gentleman right here, his name is Amos, and he was a friend of mine and a pastor friend of mine, cousin. He was awesome. He loved to cook. And because I'm a little puffy, he kept telling me he's going to make me a fabulous dinner, right? But Amos overdosed, and he was an amazing man. This young man right here, his name was Ronnie, and people called him Fat Ronnie, right? And he's known throughout the city. And Ronnie was a kind person and a smooth guy. And Ronnie, he's at Walmart one night, and he's with a friend that knows me, and he says, "Oh, I know who she is. Call her. I want to talk to her." And so they called me on the phone, and when they called me, she was like, "You remember him?" And I have to repent, I didn't, but he was so excited to talk to me, I couldn't say I didn't, right? Mm-hmm. And he said, "I'm coming to your church." And 30 days later, I got another call, and Ronnie was dead. He overdosed, and they threw him in the alley, which is the reason I mentioned that Good Samaritan law, so people don't have to throw people in the alley, because the police cannot arrest you when they get on the spot unless you have a warrant. If you don't have a warrant, they can't go bothering you, and you've called out for the help for somebody. This young man is my nephew. His name is Travion. He was awesome, and he had a young son, and Travion overdosed and died. This little girl right here is my little cousin, Carrie. And Thanksgiving, not this last one, the year prior, she had 4 children, and Carrie overdosed and died. This handsome young man here is my brother Corey, and I love Corey, and Corey loved me. He's my big bro. Everybody love their big bro, right? Mm-hmm. Well, my big brother overdosed and he died, right? And this man here, whom I could sleep with this picture, right? Because he was everything to me. He was a movie producer. He was a movie writer. He had one of his films got honorable mention in the St. Louis Film Festival, and he had one son. And this young man is Brian, and this is my oldest son. My oldest son died from an overdose. So, and I you say I'm not the poster child for overdose, but I guess I am. And it's okay, because I recognize that something one of you said in the beginning, these are real people. These aren't just numbers on a piece of paper. This is somebody's baby. This is somebody's mom, somebody's dad, their sister, their brother. And when we recognize that, hopefully it will give us an idea to spark a fire to see how we can help and work with people and not disrespect them. We have a whole language that we use now. That's what I know.
Awesome. I know Michelle wants to jump in. Sorry for that loss. But this is why we do it, ladies and gentlemen. This is why we do it.
No, I just was going to, I know you shared a little bit about your story, and now I understand the passion behind, your crusade, and it's a real thing. We oftentimes, I think, complacently make light of it. because I know I have, but I also lost a brother of mine. I also lost a brother of mine to an overdose about 20 years ago. And similar to you, he was my big brother. He was often in times a dad figure to me, and so his was I think a crack overdose or a heroin was something. But again, I was foreign to that world, so I didn't know what it was. They just said that he had overdosed, and so I understand that pain, and understand definitely the need, to have, keep the Narcan on you. It's super important. It's funny. I had both my daughters. One was with me, and of which you knew my oldest, and my youngest. When I hung out with her the day after, I gave her a box of Narcan, and she said exactly what you said. People say, "Oh, I don't need this. I don't know nobody that uses." And then she said, "You know what? I got college friends coming to town, and you never know. They're coming from Mardi Gras. You never know what can happen. We're going to be at the parade, and you know what, Ma, will let me have another box. I think I just need to have it on me. Mission accomplished. Mission accomplished." So yeah, just kudos to you. I appreciate you even the more now from when we first met, which is what made me reach out, myself and J Dub, because there's such a need for what you do, and again, just understanding your plight. It's amazing, and I appreciate your heart in it. I really, really do.
Appreciate you for sure.
Oh, I think you're muted, Cortez.
Yeah, I think the ignorance of I don't know nobody who does it. Well, that's the thing. When somebody is first experimenting with these drugs, they, and correct me if I'm wrong, Pastor Pam, they are at the highest likelihood of overdosing, right? And you wouldn't know somebody who does it if they're doing it for the first time, right? Because they don't do it. They're doing it for the first time, and that first time could be fatal. And that's why we have the Narcan spray. Real quick, we got less than 3 minutes. Tell us how we used it and how effective it is.
Well, I can tell you what you do to use Narcan. I can give you some simple steps. This is what the cannula looks like that's inside of that box. And so if you have the nasal Narcan, if you have the injectable kind, you find a muscle, you stab it into the muscle and let it release into the muscle, and that's how it would get into the body. There's also an EpiPen type. You do the same thing with the EpiPen type. The nasal Narcan, which is I think more heavily distributed now. People are not as afraid to use it. You're just going to take it like a Flonase or something. You're going to stick it all the way up the person's nose, and you're going to make sure that your fingers are touching their nose. Then you know you've got it up there far enough. Boom. And you hit that plunger, and it's going to release it into their body. And what happens is the membranes that are at the forward point of your brain, they love one thing more than they love an opioid, and that's the Narcan. So instantly they're going to ingest that in that body. Even if you're the person, of course, the person would be already dead. It's still going to pull it in. Those membranes are still working. As long as you made it to them in time, it's going to pull it in, and poof, it's going to bring them back. When you squirt it in, you're going to lay them on their left side if you can, so that they won't choke while they're coming back. Call 911, say, hey, we have somebody that's non-responsive. You want to use those words instead of overdose, preferably. That way, they're coming in rescue mode, and the jump out boys will show up second. Once you say non-responsive, you're waiting on that person to come back. And if they're not back in 2 to 3 minutes, you have another dose in that box. You're going to put that other dose up the other nostril and apply it. And again, generally, if you made it to them in time, they will come back, and you'll be able to say you saved someone's life. By then, EMS would be there, and that's the purpose of it. We want to get in the hands of people so that they can use it to save these lives. EMS often doesn't come quick enough, and they're very overwhelmed with the system because, the 100,000 people that died that the government talked about, well, I'm sure the EMS was called in lots of cases, and this Narcan prevents what happened to Ronnie from happening to people. The signs you see on their fingers, they're overdosing, their fingers may turn blue or purple. Their eyeballs, the pupils will be dilated, small as the head of a pin. Their lips may turn blue or purple, and they will have heavy gargled breathing, and the breathing sounds something like this. and you may think they're snoring. They're not snoring. They are actively dying, and they're going into overdose. And so that's what it would appear to look like. And I would like to add, lastly, you don't have to worry about the cautiousness of it, because if a person does not have an opioid in their body, this is like drinking water. A baby could drink it and it wouldn't affect them.
All right. That's it, Pastor Pam. Thank you so much. We got to run till we talk to you next time. Get your money up because you absolutely can do it. But more importantly, you deserve it. Peace out, y'all.